Good evening. Welcome back to the Liminal Record. Grab a blanket, grab some popcorn. Let's get right into tonight's stories. Someone always rings my doorbell at exactly 11:05 p.m. Since almost a year now, end of August 2019 to be exact, I've moved to an apartment in a different city because my mother, who I lived with in my hometown, passed away from cancer. I've moved here with my long-term boyfriend and one other roommate, who's been a good friend to both of us since before we had even started dating. We all absolutely love it here. The location is great. It's a 15-minute bike ride from my university, and it's located at a square with a grocery store, drugstore, lunchrooms, etc. So we pretty much have everything we could possibly need to survive within walking distance. However, after just a month or two of living here, someone has started to ring my doorbell at exactly 11:05 p.m. semi-regularly. Sometimes every day, sometimes every other day. Sometimes there's a week in between, and sometimes there are a couple of weeks in between. But it's always around 11:05 p.m. And every single time, I get no answer each time I ask through the intercom who it is. Except for one time, but we'll get to that in a bit. At first I thought it was friends from one of the neighbors who accidentally rang the wrong doorbell. But after around the fourth time I grew suspicious. And after more than those 4 times I started noticing that it always happens at either exactly 11:05 p.m. or a few minutes earlier or later. My boyfriend and roommate both work at bars, so they both work until very late and would usually only get home around 2 a.m. So each time it happened, I was always alone at home, and it started to really freak me out after a while. When I first told them about it, they kind of shrugged it off and said it was probably a wrong dial, like I thought at first. But when I told them that it has happened so many times, and sometimes even daily, they didn't really believe me and thought I was just being paranoid and spooked. However, one night, when the doorbell rang again, I answered the intercom asking who it was. I heard very heavy breathing. I was thoroughly spooked at the moment. I was again home alone and kept asking who they were and what they wanted. I couldn't make out from the breathing if it was a man or a woman, but I heard strange mumbling or whispering, and then it was dead silent, and then they appeared to have left. I had put my apartment door on a double lock after that. I was so scared and spooked out. Thankfully, my roommate got home a little earlier that night, around 30 minutes after the doorbell rang, and he could tell how upset I was. Now with the corona crisis, my roommate and boyfriend aren't able to work anymore. And now they also witness the frequent door ringing at 11:05, so they now do believe me and agree that it's very odd and creepy. We have a balcony that looks down at where our apartment building's main door is, but because there's also a shop right underneath us that always has those curtain roof things on it, the view to the door is partially obscured. Every time our doorbell rang, me, my boyfriend, and roommate would go to the balcony to see if we could see anyone, but we never could. I've also asked my neighbors from my apartment building if their doorbell also gets rung so often, but the ones that I asked all said that it has never happened to them. So 2 weeks ago, my roommate decided to do some investigating and went outside of our apartment building at 11 p.m., standing across the street and pretend to have a smoke while keeping an eye on the door. He said he did see a man who looked kind of suspicious wandering around our apartment building, who slowed down his pace significantly as soon as he approached our door. But when he spotted my roommate looking at him, he quickly walked away. We aren't 100% sure if it's the door ringer, but that was very suspicious. Our doorbell hasn't been ringing at night since that day, and I'm hoping that maybe it will stop now, but there's a possibility that it will continue again in a few weeks. So, strange man who rings my doorbell at 11:05 at night so often, please stop, and let's please never meet. I might have saved a woman and her daughter from a nasty encounter in the Australian mountains. This happened about 4 years ago. Some backstory. I'm from Australia and lived there during this event. At the time, my girlfriend, now wife, lived in another country, but was visiting me over Christmas break. I lived in a big city, which if you drove about an hour in any direction, would either lead to another city or beautiful nature. My friends and I decided to take my girlfriend at the time to see some of this beautiful nature. and we decide on a national park about an hour and a half from where we live. The place is definitely no sort of secret location. It's very well known, but there are a ton of different areas to it, all with different rural and windy roads taking you to various areas of the park. We'd gone in 2 different cars, my friends in one, my girlfriend and I in another, to have some time together. We finished out the day of hiking and we were heading home down one of those less common roads. I remember seeing this really beat up old 70s sedan with a wild looking dude in the driver's seat drive past us in the other direction. This wasn't uncommon as there are a lot of smaller, less economically sound towns spattered around the area, but for some reason him and his car stood out, and my girlfriend noticed it as well. About 200 meters further down the very windy road, there was a pull-off area, just a semicircle of gravel you could pull off to look at the view towards the ocean. There was a camper van belonging to a company that mostly rented out colorful vans to backpackers, parked there with a woman standing in front of it. As soon as she sees us, she jumps out onto the road to flag us down. Now, I've read enough of these subs know pulling in to help her on a quiet road might not be the safest idea, but back then I hadn't, and my friends were in the car directly behind us. Luckily, she wasn't the person I didn't want to meet. She was quite obviously upset and scared when we pulled in. I told my girlfriend to wait in the car, and I got out to speak to her. She was almost in tears. I can't remember where she was from, but it was Central European from memory. Touring around with her 4 or 5-year-old daughter. She told me her van had broken down, and she'd pulled off there and called a van company's assistance line when she was waiting for help. By this time, my friends had pulled in behind us, and a couple of them had come over to see what was up. Apparently, a scary man had driven past her a few times already. First time pulling over to offer to take her and her daughter to the nearest town for help. She had thanked him and said no, that she was waiting for the assistance vehicle. He left, but then he kept driving past every 10 to 15 minutes in opposite directions, slowing down, looking at them, driving off. She begged us to stay with her while she waited for the assistance vehicle, because this guy terrified her and her daughter. We agreed. My friends, being the awesome people they are, decided me and my girlfriend were enough and they ditched us. Thanks, guys. We stayed with the woman for a little while, before the car that my girlfriend and I had seen earlier drove past kind of slow, coming the opposite way we'd seen him the first time. As soon as he'd driven around the bend, the lady told us that was the scary man she'd seen before we got there. This got my girlfriend and I to take her much more seriously after the feeling we got from the guy just seeing him on the road. A few minutes later, he came back from the other direction and pulled into the parking area. Some more context. I'm not an intimidating man. I'm tallish, but I have almost zero muscle and fairly soft features. So there's not at all intimidating me, a terrified foreign woman, her tiny daughter, my girlfriend who doesn't look that intimidating, but is tough as nails, parked off a quiet road in a rural location with a not so nice looking dude pulling into where we were. Great. He gets out, and is redneck as hell, and definitely not friendly looking. No judgment on the redneck part. I come from a poor country town north of the city and those are my people, but hopefully it sets a picture. He strolls over to us. At this point I walk towards him to put myself between the girls and him. I have no idea where this bravery came from. I would definitely not describe myself as a brave person normally. He looks at the girls, then me, and asks if he can help. I tell him no, we're just waiting for the assistance vehicle, and tell him that we've got it covered. He says then maybe he could stay and wait with the woman and her daughter so we don't have to. I tell him we're happy to stay and thank him again, but we've got it covered. He kinda just stood there for a while staring at all of us, not really saying anything, giving off mega creepy vibes. After what seemed like forever, another car drove past us and looked but kept going. That seemed to startle him. He mumbled good luck and got in his car and drove off. We waited with this poor scared woman and her daughter for almost 90 minutes. Ended up talking a lot and hopefully we had made our opinions of Australians a little brighter after Mega Creep, who drove past once more after about 15 minutes after he'd left us. Finally, the assistance vehicle arrived. A bigger dude who could definitely handle himself. I asked to see his ID and stuff to be safe, but he was in a car marked by the company, had all of his tools, and definitely seemed legit. We gave the lady my number and asked her to text me when she was off safe. She was so grateful to us for staying with her for such a long time. It made me feel good that even if this dude was just a weird-looking, awkward country guy that didn't mean harm and really was just trying to help, We had still made her feel more comfortable in a strange country. I don't think he was, and definitely believe he was up to no good, but you never know. I did get a message from her to say she was safe, so everything ended well. But creepy mountain dude, let's not meet again. That time I dodged human traffickers in Texas. So 2 summers ago, I'm cycling to a smoke shop. It's kind of out of my way, in a not great neighborhood, but I'm fairly confident. It's daylight, I ride all over the city, and I know the store. I was 24, short, had short pink hair, but I always considered myself too intimidating to kidnap. I forget that even if I am a veteran, I'm also a short white girl. I pull up to a crosswalk, and I'm waiting for a light when 2 Hispanic guys start catcalling me from a windowless white van. No identification, no stickers. Even the way they yelled at me was weird. It wasn't the typical, nice tits, locker room BS. They would talk to each other and then yell through a cracked window about how we're gonna get you. You're next. It felt off like they were excited, but I just flipped them off and rode away. End of story, right? Over a mile later, I'm right around the block from my destination. To set it up, there was a massive empty lot, really more like 2 lots, on my right. That was the side I was riding down. To my left, there's the back fence of a very old and probably abandoned house. It was like that all around, mostly drifters or old people in poverty. A few trap houses. The point is there was no one else visible, and even if they had seen this, they wouldn't have said anything for their own safety. I'm pedaling along when the album ends and I think, I'm almost there. I'm not going to stop and fumble with my phone. That saved my life. As I'm thinking this, a white van pulls up on my left and stays right inside my peripheral. They revved the engine a few times and tried to spook me, but something told me not to move. Don't let them know you know. So I acted like my music was playing and pedaled a little faster. Up ahead of me was a brick wall to my left, and a tall tree over it before a quick alley entrance. Suddenly they punch the gas and pull up in front of me, stopping next by the brick wall. They were trying to corner or funnel me, putting me in a position where I had to ride between their door and the wall. This all happened in the span of maybe 7 seconds. I honestly didn't feel panic. I didn't actively register any fear or sweat or anything. It was like someone much calmer took over my body and said, nope. I remember instantly crossing the street without even thinking about the movements or why. As I pedaled up to their side, I realized that it was the van from before, and now it has a window repair magnet on the side. It's too small to look good and has absolutely no contact info, just a generic name. I kept rubbernecking and see that there was no one in front, but there was movement inside the seats. The guys were in the back by the door. They had planned to literally drag me off my bike, off the street, and do God knows what to me. Once I was past, they scrambled into the front seat and pulled out so hard they burnt rubber. I got to the store safe, but I still hate myself for not taking the plate number. Not that it would do any good, they probably switched them out later. I knew I had been almost kidnapped and killed or worse, but it wasn't until I told the story to someone from Mexico that I found out it was traffickers. They said it sounded sadly familiar, and it happens all the time. I have no family, and my roommates are just roommates. I would have been gone for 3 to 7 days before anyone decided something was wrong. And even then, they would have just known I left on my bike and vanished. I would have been across the border or dead before anybody even knew I was gone. So human traffickers, let's not meet.